and welcome to another episode of the Weekly Wednesday Warrior, sponsored by PAL Card Games and Comics. And it's pretty dreary out today, but you know, in Port New York. My name is Skylar Hathaway.
I'm Chris Fodder.
What do we got, Chris?
Today we're talking about Something Epic number 3, Moon Knight 25.
Yeah, big Moon Knight issue, huge stuff. Big expectations too, right? Big 25 issues in, he better have something to deliver, right?
10-pager, or not 10-pager, $10 issue too.
$10 issue, 70 pages, and a backup that I didn't need because I own that backup elsewhere. Did you read the backup?
I looked at it because I didn't think it would be relative.
Yeah.
But it's Bill Sienkiewicz, so it's pretty to look at.
Yeah, it looks like it was really forced in there. Like last moment, somebody was like, "Let's shove this in to make it $10 instead of $8." You know.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
But in any case, before we even get to that, we got a couple of honorable mentions. Most of all, World's Finest Teen Titans.
Yeah, I actually brought.
Show that cover up. Both me and Chris read this book in preparation for this show, and we were thinking about putting it on here, but just didn't make the cut.
It's like all the other teen books we've done, very setup-y, not a lot of plot, so we can establish characterization.
Yeah, exactly. There just wasn't much for us to chew up.
Yeah.
It would have been us going, wow, it was fun with good art, had a classic feel to modern age twist. And that's about it. But yeah, compliments to Mark Waid for doing another book and keeping us busy while Night Terrors is happening.
Yeah.
And compliments to Emanuela Lupacino, who's doing a pretty good Chris Samney impression throughout the entirety of it. So, yeah, this is good. But, I'll throw out my honorable mention would be Darth Vader 36, only because Raphael Yanko is back on it. You got nothing against Greg Pak. He's the whole reason I'm even reading this book, 36 issues in.
Yeah.
But there have been some really lackluster artists, and I can't blame them either. I know that when you do Star Wars, you have to just do what they tell you to do. Yeah. So whenever a Star Wars artist manages to impress me, I'm like double impressed because I know that they've had to go through
so many hoops.
Yeah, and they still made it look really cool. Yeah. So a lot of credit to Raphael Yanko for doing a sweet 2-issue story so far. But moving on to our subject at hand, I don't think you're going to disagree with me with putting Moon Knight first.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. We're going to do Moon Knight first, and I'm going to try and do this summary. Of course, you could jump in whenever.
Yeah.
First of all, we open up with like a prologue about this dude who looks like the Riddler from the Tom King Batman series.
Yeah.
With those red sideburns and stuff. I thought that was hilarious. I don't even know what happens in the prologue because it's like a page or two long.
Yeah, it's
and then we jump right into the main story.
It's sort of like an homage to issue 1 where Moon Knight welcomes his guest to the Midnight Mansion, but instead it's the Black Spectre, and he offers them I'll give you any favor in exchange for your soul.
Is that even how this opens? I thought this opens with dudes in an airport. It's this dude with red hair and he's in an airport, and or not an airport, right? He's walking down the street.
Yeah.
Okay. And
then,
then you flip, and then then he's going to what you think might be the Midnight Mission.
Yeah.
You figure it ends up being Black Spectre's version of the Midnight Mission, basically.
Right.
Which is cool. An opposing force doing basically the same thing that Moon Knight's trying to do, but for villains, and probably in the worst way possible.
And it's been an homage that McKay's done a couple times. The Hunter's Moon issue opened up the same way.
Okay, cool.
It's like a regular thing.
I'm glad that you pick up on that kind of stuff because my memory is not built for those things.
Yeah.
Which I think is one of the reasons why this book is lacking for me because I think it has a bunch of things that I think would pay off more if I had the ability to pay more attention.
I would agree. I felt that reading this issue. I was like, damn, I really should have read 12 onwards.
Yeah, or something.
He's been building a plot, and I'm kind of losing it.
I'm lost in the Dance Macabre.
Yeah.
To play on the issue, which is the biggest part of this issue is named Dance Macabre. The thing is broken up into 6 chapters or so.
Yeah. Something
like that. There's a prologue, there's main chapters, and then there's an epilogue even. And so the summary of the story, though, is basically that 8-Ball, a villain I'm not familiar with.
He's like a Spider-Man nobody. He shows up a lot at that Spider-Man bar. I think it's called the Bar with No Name.
Sure.
He's just a background face.
So we got 8-Ball, a no-name villain, shows up to ask Mark for help, specifically Moon Knight, at the mission. And Mark's not going to turn the guy down, especially since he's under the impression that 8-Ball knows where Black Spectre is.
Yeah.
And is Black Spectre the dude who was trapped in that Pope box like a couple issues ago, when Venom was trying to help him find him, and then the police showed up, and then him and Venom had to leave?
No.
That's a different dude. The Mask of the
Phantasm. It's someone he was working for.
Okay, alright. So
I think he was testing out the mind control technology. That's kind of like the crux.
Because that dude should be the main villain. He's such a cool design,
yeah.
Man.
I hope he shows up again.
Who is Black Spectre?
He's a regular. There's apparently 3 of them.
And I don't mean by... Right. I knew that. I think like a couple issues ago, wasn't Moon Knight trying to act like he was the new Black Spectre in an effort to confuse Tigra? Or was that a different villain? The Midnight Man. He was trying to be the Midnight Man.
All the Moon Knight villains kind of blur for me, besides like Bushmaster.
I'm having some trouble myself. So I guess this Black Spectre guy's been around.
Yeah, and he's killed the other 2, even though one's alive.
Not something that he made a joke in there too that he knows the other one's alive. He's about to get out of jail and he's happy he can eat solid foods.
Oh yeah,
remember? Yeah. So we're deep. We're deep into Moon Knight lore here, and they probably should have opened this book up with the backup. Honestly, give us a little like preamble to like, okay, this is gonna be really deep in Moon Knight lore.
Yeah.
So we got 8-Ball. He's asking for Mark's help, Moon Knight's help, Mr. Knight's help. Mr. Knight's like, yeah, I'll help you. Show me where Black Spectre is. Okay, no problem. I just had to deal with Black Spectre. It went wrong. That's why I'm coming to you. I need help. Right. It's a trap. Moon Knight walks straight into it. I think Moon Knight knows that that's what's going on. I don't think he knows not to trust 8-Ball.
Yeah.
But one of the things that him and 8-Ball kind of share in a moment on their way over there is 8-Ball says sometimes it's just easier to be the guy everyone thinks you are, which is something Moon Knight's been dealing with for the past 25 issues. Is
because we learned 8-Ball is like a talented aerospace engineer.
Yeah,
he was like, I made like a flying pool table. Like he's a very gifted.
It's the rack.
Oh yeah, yeah.
The rack that racks up pool tables. He made like a flying billiard rack. That was pretty funny. That might have been one of the funniest joke in this whole book, actually. So 8-Ball's very capable and could be doing something else, but he's just fallen into this role. Moon Knight's been kind of doing the same thing, but in these issues, trying to break out of that, especially with Tigra and stuff. So they kind of relate real quick, and then boom, lights, camera, action. Black Spectre's got everything on display, and 8-Ball books it. He's like, I'm sorry, I had to set you up. He's got my family, or something like that. He had like a good reason for running away or whatever.
Yeah.
And you can assume that the guy who in the beginning of this book went to Black Spectre was probably 8-Ball.
Yeah.
And Black Spectre probably told 8-Ball, all right, this is how you're going to help me. You're going to trap Mark. You're going to trap Mr.
I sure hope it's not 8-Ball, because they really tried to make 8-Ball sympathetic, and the guy at the start wanted his ex-wife like killed or like removed from the picture so he would have custody of the kids.
Yeah, I could be wrong.
It could be him. I feel like we've been really trying to make this 8-Ball like the new John Paul as the issue goes along or something. Mm-hmm. And I would not be able to sympathize with that guy.
No, and I don't know if you're supposed to either. I think that the fact that he says that to Moon Knight might even be a blatant lie. That he's just trying to get Moon Knight to trust him. And then he does come back for Moon Knight, but we're not sure that that's not part of Black Spectre's plan either.
Yeah. That
could have continued to be part of the trap. This could keep going on. So in any case, he shows up the trap, and the trap is probably most of the story. There's a movie called, I said Fist of Fury earlier. I meant to say Enter the Dragon. If you've ever seen Enter the Dragon, there's this big, not labyrinth, it was a tower that Bruce Lee has to fight his way through. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is at the top of that tower. It's a really sweet scene. I suggest you check that out if you haven't seen that movie. This is the same thing here. Moon Knight's got to face a bunch of villains, all of them from his backlog of villains. You got Mountain Man Marco, which makes Daredevil appearances and Spider-Man appearances, to my knowledge. And there was another dude. Did you write down the name of these guys?
Yeah.
There was another guy who...
Stuart Clark.
Yes, dude, the Stuart Clark guy.
Manslaughter Marsdale. That's the other guy.
Yeah, there's like one dude who's just a big fighter man, and then there's another guy. What is the first name you listed?
Clark. He just has drones.
Right, the drone guy. And so Mark fights drones, fights Mountain Man, takes them all down, no problem or whatever. And and then he's like goading Black Spectre, like, oh, I was only shot like 4 times, you've barely hurt me and stuff.
Yeah.
And do you remember what happens after that? Is he gets in trouble all over again. And then 8-Ball rescues him from the trouble.
Cool, because Waxman shows up.
Wax.
He has like a...
Oh, yeah. And isn't he the dude that he got trapped in the ball early in the series?
He got stuck in concrete.
Weekly Wednesday Warriors, I did not pick up on that. Did they even tell us that was Waxman, or was that an assumption? Okay, it's in there somewhere. Because I honestly thought it was the Midnight Mission being twisted to Black Spectre's preference. I thought he had captured, like, that evil presence that makes the Midnight Mission, and, like, used it against Moon Knight somehow. But the Waxman makes a lot more sense. 8-Ball rescues Mark from the Waxman. They both exit. And Black Spectre's like, I'll get you next time, Moon Knight, or something like that.
Yeah.
Interplayed into this entire main story is a flashback story that kind of feels a little forced being put in there. Yeah. It's not directly related to the plot that we're going with at all, or the series that much, other than there's an agent of Hydra that's working on sound wave technology type things, EMP, brainwashing type stuff. And so this flashback is Mark as a mercenary seemingly before he became an absolute douchebag.
Yeah, before he joined up with Bushmaster.
Still kind of a douchebag, but less so. He tries to save this guy. They kill a bunch of people in the process of trying to save this guy from Hydra. They also then fail in the process because they get followed, and Hydra shows up and starts shooting at them. And Mark survives. Frenchie's there as well. Frenchie survives, and
the guy just
Plesko survives as well, and Plesko ends up being one of Mark's Midnight Cabinet members. Shadow Cabinet members who also died recently.
Yeah, died last issue, I think.
No, last issue was Morbius.
Okay.
Or Morpheus. Plesko died earlier in the series, though.
Okay.
He was the informant for a while, and then got killed. I guess by Black Spectre, I think is what we're leading to believe. And what the issue really ends on is, there's 4 people on this flashback. There's Mark, Plesko, Frenchie, and this girl that we don't know much about. They even say in the narration we don't know much about her. Yeah. She gets killed in the mission, or at least we're led to believe that. We don't really see a death scene. We just see a shot of her face. It looks like she's dead, right? And there's some contextual clues that lead you to believe that Mark got pissed after that point because his lady died or whatever. So, but moving right along, that story doesn't really go anywhere. It kind of dries up there. And we're left on a cliffhanger to some extent of what's going to happen to that girl, how does it affect Mark, where does Mark go after that? What happens to this EMP device thing? Yeah. Why did Hydra show up? Hydra hasn't been involved in this Moon Knight book at all. Now all of a sudden they're a huge driving force and stuff. And Frenchie also seemed a little strange there too, because he was trying to tell everybody to not talk about Hydra, or else Hydra would show up. Like he's some superstitious old woman. They even say that in the book. But then at the end, Frenchie says, you speak of the devil and they'll show up. At the end of the book, we get Black Spectre talking to Zodiac. Right. How does he get Zodiac out of prison?
He uses the device. He has someone already inside with the cameras.
The old Black Spectre is on the inside with Zodiac, but seemingly threatens Zodiac that Black Spectre wants to speak with him. Oh, and then he gives what's his face? He gives what's this guy's name again?
Zodiac.
He gives Zodiac earbuds so that Zodiac can listen to what's going to happen and stuff. A jail riot happens. Black Spectre lands a helicopter on the roof during this riot as Zodiac's trying to escape, and then they stop Zodiac basically right when Zodiac's about to leave the prison. And you see Black Spectre's there with his team, and he's like, speak to the devil, and he shows. Yeah. Which is a direct quote from Frenchie. I'd imagine making you associating and assuming that Frenchie's the bad guy this whole time.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that they
the
mentioned
helicopter and everything. It's all leading to
that too,
so
right? And then not only that, but if Frenchie hasn't shown up a lot in this series. He was in like the Nightmare World in the last issue, and I think he has showed up really, really early in the series.
I think you said the annual. He showed
once,
up.
yes, to help out Mark with Werewolf by Night there.
Yeah.
But I don't know how they. If you've read Moon Knight before, if you've read a lot of Moon Knight, Jean Paul is one of the best characters, one of the most moral, ethically driven, really good characters. It wouldn't make much sense for this to end up being Black Mask or Black Spectre, whatever this guy's name is.
Yeah.
But I could see it, and the reason I can see it is because of that flashback. Because I think that flashback, they're saying that this weapon that Black Spectre's been using is sound based, but it is specifically for brainwashing purposes. That's why Hydra wants it.
Yeah.
John Paul's probably brainwashed.
Yeah.
By maybe the original or the second Black Spectre to take revenge on Moon Knight for basically handicapping the guy, from what Moon Knight tells us.
Yeah.
I would not be surprised, right, if that's how this pans out. I would be very surprised if this is just Frenchie and he's turned heel and he's just a bad guy now. That'd be a pretty tough swallow.
Yeah.
Did I miss anything in the summary, Chris? Because this was a lot. It was a big.
It's a big issue. Zodiac shows up a couple times before he gets let out,
right.
and he has like an ongoing problem with Black Spectre because he thinks Black Spectre is making a play at being Moon Knight's like rival.
Yeah.
And that's the role he wants to assume.
Right.
He thinks he is Moon Knight's arch-villain or whatever.
Right. Which is cool from Jed McKay's perspective because he's building a better rogues gallery for this character.
Right, yeah. And reminding the reader of his rogues gallery, too.
They're
re-establishing them.
Yeah.
Building them back up. Because so often they get killed in these sorts of books.
Yeah. I think that covers the summary.
Yeah.
I'm going to just go down my notes now. We started off really strong. We had a really beautiful open. And I just saw that dude is not 8 Ball. It's this dude named Burroughs. His last name is Burroughs. Some character that Black Spectre's helping out. There was 2 splash pages in the first 3 pages.
Mm-hmm.
There were 3 splash pages in the first 5 pages. And there were even more splash pages as this goes on.
Oh, yeah.
Which is cool, but also kind of tells me that Jed McKay knew he needed to waste some space here because he had to write a giant 70-page 25 issue.
For sure.
So, like...
Because this reads like all the other 22, 32-page issues of Moon Knight.
Yeah.
Just stretched out. He doesn't... It's not like 3 issues of Moon Knight in one book. It's one longer issue of the normal series. Which just lets the... There's not really a lot of cracks in McKay's writing, but the ones that are there are pronounced, I would say.
Yeah, they are. And this was one of my least favorite issues of Moon Knight so far. And it drives me up a wall a little bit because big issue 25, $10 issue. This is supposed to
Frank
really...
Miller on the cover.
Ooh, and Gary Frank on the other one. Yeah. We might as well hold these up now. Great covers. This cover's been really warming up on me too. And I know that it looks like crap when you look at it like this, but from over here, you start to see that all those weird black spots start blending into where the muscle's actually supposed to be. And then you go, oh, I see what you were doing, Frank. But when you look at it like this, it just looks like really lazy stuff. But I actually love it when you look at it the way that I think it's supposed to be intended to look at. Sorry, Weekly Wednesday Warriors going on about my cover over here for a moment.
I like that it's pure white. I think that's cool.
Yeah.
It's black and white. It's very simplistic.
With like yellows.
Yeah.
Over here for coloration and stuff. I really think he put in all of his effort on this one.
Oh, for sure. It's not a phoned-in cover.
Yeah, no, definitely not. And we've seen some phoned-in Frank Miller art. So, this book was good. I'm not familiar with 8 Ball or really half of these guys. Which I've read a lot of Moon Knight too. So the problem with Moon Knight too is
I imagine they're all from the Mensch days, right?
I've read a lot of Doug Mensch stuff.
Okay.
The stuff that I haven't read as much of is the 90s stuff.
Okay.
So I think that's really when they really established Moon Knight, because the Doug Mensch stuff is mostly Stephen Grant. Stephen Grant as Moon Knight, doing rich person stuff. It's kind of a Batman book, which is why people for years just compared this to a Batman book.
Yeah.
But the Rogues Gallery isn't that prevalent. it's almost the Doug Mensch stuff is almost episodic. There's not a lot of reoccurring characters. So I think that they probably solidified a lot of these characters through the 90s run, and especially a character like Mountain Man Marco, who I don't think was really that relevant of a character either until the 90s and stuff. It would make sense if that's when this really took off, a lot of these villains. And I thought the book was lacking a little bit for that. I thought it would have been a lot cooler if through these 25 issues, Jed MacKay had made it a point to introduce these villains already, which he did with some of them, right?
Yeah, like Waxman was really pronounced.
Is out there. We know Zodiac, we know Black Spectre, we know a lot of the other characters in the book. It's the villains that were really kind of lacking in that field. I thought that the panel progression in this particular issue was slow and unclear.
Okay.
And I thought the unclear stuff was because they kept cutting it to the flashback, which had me like pausing the main story basically. Because the flashback, sometimes in comics they can do this seamlessly, right? And we've seen it.
Typically there's a lead-in, and I don't think there's a lot of a lead-in.
There are
a line someone says that reminds someone of the past,
there
or
are zero.
A paralleling event. Yeah.
You turn the page, and it's just now we're in the flashback.
And it seems like the only reason there are chapters in this issue, because it's broken up by chapters, is so that we can have a page turn to a different chapter. That's a completely different event.
Yeah. So Jed MacKay was clearly trying, but I think even he knew that this is kind of shoved together a little bit. We got 70 pages to kill, so this made it on the show. Let us be clear.
We chose to not review World's Finest Teen Titans. We chose to review this.
This book
is still better than World's Finest Teen Titans.
Very good. It's just when you write a 70-page epic, there are a lot of things that you set up that that expectations need to come down for. And I think he just fell a little short with a lot of them is all. And the book was still good anyway, which says a lot about his capability. But like the book was a little slow. There was a lot of splash pages that kind of took a moment out of the book. And then the narration by Black Spectre goes through almost the entirety of this book. The only parts it doesn't go through are the flashbacks. And so since the narration is just continuing, it's all one long narration by Black Spectre, that gets broken up and paused, which also breaks up the book and pauses the book incorrectly. So there's just a lot of things that were taking me out. And in a comic, you want things to pull you in, like in something epic. But this Moon Knight, I just kept getting pulled out by the villains, pulled out by the panel progression, pulled out by the different stories going on. And I can deal with a lot of jumbled shit. This is a Moon Knight book with 3 different personalities to one character. I can deal with that. Yeah. But this was jumbled.
I almost would have preferred if, in typical anniversary format, we had story, another story, the backup.
Kind of like an
just separate them.
Thing.
Yeah.
That would have been nice, too.
I think you could have separated the flashback, and it would have stood on its own better.
I am thoroughly appreciative that they brought on different artists for different parts of this book.
Yeah.
As much as I love seeing Alessandro Cappuccio, if he had done this whole book, I would have been super confused. Yeah, so
I thought they were inconsistent, though. I didn't think any of them were bad. I just miss Cappuccio.
I'm totally fine with him not doing that flashback, and I thought the grittiness of the artists on the flashback was
but there's a couple random parts in the main story that I think aren't drawn by him.
No, it's the artist split up by Cappuccio, Alessandro Vitti, and some other dude that I wasn't that familiar with that I'm going to go pull out the name of, because the book was still pretty good even with those 3 guys. Yeah, those villains really lack establishment. Moon Knight even kind of explains who the villains are as he takes them down. There's a lot of just contextual stuff in here. I don't think this opening page actually is Cappuccio. I think this is somebody else trying to do Cappuccio to the best of their ability. Because this figure, if you look at like the face that he uses on this guy Burroughs, that's not Cappuccio art, right? But it's also not, but it's not VT either.
No.
Right? Because VT's stuff looks really, really specific. That's Cappuccio. Then that's VT, right? Okay. And I like it. It's gritty. It looks like Sheriff of Babylon. Did you ever read that book?
Yeah.
It's really good. So yeah, we got Partha Patine, who does the first 4 pages.
Okay.
That looks like Cappuccio, but isn't Cappuccio. So this person, Partha Patine, is doing a great job. And then Alessandro Vitti is the dude who's doing the other stuff. And I've seen Alessandro Vitti elsewhere, and I like his stuff too. I can't recall where though. And then, of course, Rochelle Rosenberg killing it on the colors, making this book super digestible, keeping things consistent. I don't think I've ever seen like a colorist, like, I know she's not working directly with Jed MacKay, but it looks like she's working directly with Jed MacKay.
Yeah.
It's almost like the writer is leaving color notes somehow because the color is so good in this book.
Yeah.
So there's like even context for the villains and stuff. There's a couple words in here that I just lost me. Pygmalion.
Okay.
Do you know what that was referring to?
No. I don't remember them saying that, but I know they did.
Myrmidon. They said it though. You know what I'm talking about, right? I don't. And like with context, these words might make more sense, but I don't know what was happening, so I don't even have the context to like derive Pygmalion. I don't know if that's a person or a place.
This was all during the flashback, right, where they're trying to explain the Hydra stuff.
I think both of them. It's not only those words, but then there's this moment where dude's on the floor, Moon Knight just kicked him in the face, and he says, "Banab!" How many times have you seen that in a comic book?
Yeah,
like written exactly like that, too. And then there's this moment where Mark's getting onto a plane, I think, or something like that. Mm-hmm. And somebody says something about Mark, and then he goes, "Everyone's a critic." Another dumb cliche. And I think these are in here to try and make us laugh, worst of all. And the funniest part of this book is when 8-Ball admits to being a super computer engineer, helicopter man, making killer billiard racks fly. Who is Sarnak? He's the dude. He's Mask of the Phantasm.
Yeah.
That's who Sarnak is. Okay. We got 1 out of 3 so far. Don't know who Pygmalion is. Don't know who Myrmidon is. Figured out Sarnak is totally that dude from a couple issues ago.
Yeah.
Commodore Planet.
Yeah. Okay.
Did you pick up on that?
I don't remember that.
Dude, it's in there. You making taking notes out of nothing.
I imagine.
So there's a dude named Commodore Planet walking around. Is he the captain guy who? Remember there was a I think VT actually did the art on that issue. It was a fill-in issue. On the cover, it was this like big. He was wearing a captain who's like hammering down on Moon Knight. You recall big white costume.
Oh no. Maybe.
I think it's starting to ring a bell. We might have actually been introduced to Commodore Planet already. Unsure, unclear, but that's another one that popped up. I'm really not sure what's up with that. Yeah, I already complained about the hard to follow Black Spectre narration. 8-Ball comes and saves the day. We already mentioned that. I thought that was cool. I do hope that 8-Ball sticks around. He's got
I think that's one of the better things MacKay has done was really build a new supporting cast for Moon Knight.
Yeah.
Just because of how often his regular supporting cast breaks up.
Well, not only that, but that's an ongoing Moon Knight thing. Every time you read like a new Moon Knight book, there is a lot of new characters in the supporting cast. I don't even know in this run. Have we gone to the diner in this run?
I don't know what that is.
There's a diner that that's a big part of Moon Knight. He's friends with the owner of the diner. And it's Jake Lockley and Mark are friends with the owner. And they, so much so that the kids of the owner ended up being like narcs for Moon Knight. Oh. Moon Knight would like pay them, and the kids would like run around and try to like source information and stuff for him. So we haven't seen her once. She's totally in the panels of either this or the last issue, like during the like nightmare scenes, or one of the like moments in here where they're like, they talk about his friends and there's like his friends in the background, but the metaphorical panel or something like that. Do you have anything else to talk about here, Chris?
There was a cool line where Mark, he gets a gun and he's like oh god, what was his name? I'm only gonna look because I wrote it down.
The dude with the drones, right?
Yeah. Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
He gets a gun and he's making fun. He's like, why the hell do you use those stupid moonerangs? And Mark is like, I don't like who I am with a gun because it's, and you're not going to like me with one either.
Right.
Kind of a dud of a payoff, though, because he doesn't use one.
And
but it was a good splash page, which is mostly why I brought up the line.
It was a great splash page, but I also thought it was a dud, and I thought it was a dud even up to that, because if you look at the drones, the way the drones are drawn, you can't see any guns on them.
Yeah, I don't know where we got it.
And if they are drone guns, they're drone guns. They're not a rifle.
Yeah.
And he is holding a rifle. Also, he plays the drones, right? In the beginning, he's outside for most of this battle. Somehow he ends up inside. He jumps out of a window to attack a drone and take the gun off. And then he ends up on top of the building when he's done.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like...
The page progression was a little weird.
The page progression was strange. I don't understand how he got the gun. I swallowed it. The art was sweet. I could keep reading this book. That's definitely not where we're supposed to be focusing at all. It's just supposed to look cool. It's supposed to be fun action and stuff. And it kind of was that.
Yeah.
But it's lacking in regards to this is the big 25th issue. You should be thinking about story a little bit harder, I think. Yeah.
I think
Is that
that's
the last
it.
of it? Yeah.
I wrote a note about the line.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is if you have never read the backup, you should read the backup. You should go back and read the backup.
Yeah.
Those Hulk, it's reprinted from a Hulk magazine. And those Hulk magazines are not easy to get your hands on. They were black label format.
Yeah.
They were big books, so a lot of shops just didn't bother to carry them just because they couldn't fit them on the shelf. So also, I don't remember, I could be wrong here, but I think the backups in that book were in black and white, and it's colored in here.
Yeah.
I could be wrong about that. It might have been colored. I didn't read it because
It did look like during the early 80s there was a style like graphic novel coloring.
Yeah.
God Loves Man Kills.
Yes.
That style.
Yeah.
It was very similar to that.
and the reprint here is a little blurry too, is what I
Yeah.
wanted to complain about. But it's Doug Mensch, creator of Moon Knight, writing Moon Knight before the Moon Knight series, by the way. And it's Bill Sienkiewicz drawing Moon Knight also before the Moon Knight series.
Right. So really Neil Adams-y Bill Sienkiewicz.
Really early Doug Mensch stuff. Really early Bill Sienkiewicz stuff. Reprinted here for your convenience. Yeah, pretty sweet. Moving right along to something epic where I'm going to pretend like I'm holding up a cover, but I don't have a cover.
You gonna throw a JPEG there or something?
Yeah, that'd be funny. Diamond comic distributors failed to send me my something epic. But in any case, we have something epic number 3, which me and Chris are talking about, could pretty much summarize in like a 2-sentence thing here, so I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
We've had this kid, do you remember what his name was? Dexter, maybe?
No.
Dude, that's the one big thing I don't remember from this book. I don't remember.
I thought he was
his name
unnamed.
He might have been unnamed. Unnamed kid, main character. He's dealing with death, he's dealing with imagination, he's dealing with life. There's a lot of great themes in this book. His mother's got cancer and his aunt is trying to help him out. He goes home after school one day, after hanging out with his buddies, and he does have buddies, which is cool. And his mom is already home, and he's surprised, and his mom's surprised. His mom's expecting his aunt. He walks in on his mom, who's in her deathbed, effectively.
Yeah.
And his mom's like, "Oh, I'm actually thrilled that you're here, and it's not your aunt. I wanted to talk to you. I believe you.
Yeah.
I believe everything that you've ever told me, and the reason for it is I'm starting to hear the same shit that you're starting to hear. I'm not sure, me as a person, I'm not sure if this is the author trying to tell us that our main character is crazy, and in death, you start to lose your mind. So maybe this kid is already as crazy as people that are on their deathbed. Don't know, don't think that's the point, but definitely something you could have collected from this. The mother is losing her shit.
And she can hear them, he can see them. That's
Right.
She mentioned she doesn't, like they're even in the later panel, we can see that they're with him, listening to his story or whatever that he's telling her.
Yeah.
And she can't see them, she can only hear them. I was trying to figure out what he's trying to say there. It has to be something with like how you become a child again as you die.
Oh,
like
it's
how you're reflecting on yourself.
Apparent. It's apparent, and I'll say it in just a moment. So Chris is totally right, and the big reason why she's in belief of our main character's crazy imagination is he has been vocal about this stuff in the past, and nobody believes. And so she was listening in on the conversation between this vampire man and this vampire monkey, I think it was.
Yeah. 2
vampires. And he was talking about some silly stuff about how the older vampire needs to go and see a dentist, but is too afraid to do so or something.
He only has 2 teeth. No, I think he's afraid about getting ripped off because he only has 2 teeth.
Right, okay. And that's a ridiculous thing to be talking about.
Yeah.
And it's been something that, the main characters stress that these characters are humorous because they're old and crotchety and ridiculous.
They're supposed to be like Hanna-Barbera or news strip cartoon characters.
And so since the mother is now hearing these jokes,
Yeah.
she is under the impression that this kid's never been lying. So now she knows what's going on, and she says to the kid on her deathbed, "I want to know you before I die. You've been holding something back from everybody because you felt so alone and disassociated. Tell me who you really are. I want to hear everything. Tell me as much as you can." So then the kid, just like Chris was saying, there's a big panel. I'll pull up the page where there's a bunch of these animated imagination creations hanging out in the room with his mother, and the mother is definitely dying, but is listening to everything that the kid is saying and stuff. and it's really wonderful, and the art is really pretty, and even like some superhero dude that was like flying by stuck around to listen to the story.
I thought it was Spawn for the longest time. I looked back on one of his sketch covers, and he drew this character. It's like it has a very Spawny middle, but it's like it's his own character.
Yeah, I thought it kind of looked like The Haunt.
Okay.
Which is like I think that's Robert Kirkman and McFarlane's Spawn character.
I think Capullo drew that book.
I would not be surprised. Gotta get my hands on that. But anyway, so they're doing that, and the kid loses his mom. His mom dies shortly after that. And then we get a time skip, more or less, and the kid's an adult, and he's working on a farm, and he's by himself. He stripped himself from imagination and creativity, all but being a carpenter is the format of which he decides to do some creativity. And there's been few beats, but the beats have been there of religious background, specifically Christianity through this book. A couple of moments where he sees like a Jesus piece. There's another moment where there's like a statue of like Mary, the Virgin Mary and stuff. And so him seeing all these things and nobody believing him, and him having a sense that nobody else has, and then becoming a carpenter, seems to me to be a reference to Jesus Christ. Which I don't know where that's going. Could be like, he might be some level of savior, he might be something epic. But we're not sure. That's definitely what we're trying to figure out by reading the series.
Yeah.
So he's on his own, and he's got a buddy who helps him find work and helps him, just live his day-to-day, because he has no family now. Presumably he's all by himself.
No family and nothing to entertain him either. Because part of like stripping creativity is he can't have any books because those speak to him, video games, all that stuff.
But he's got a cat named Mufasa, which I thought was hypocritical. Because if you're going to get a cat, you're going to name it Mufasa. It's a direct relation to the Lion King.
Yeah.
So every time he thinks of this cat, he's got to think about the Lion King. Anyway, I think this dude's failing to do what he wants to do. He's just trying to play the ignorant card.
Well, it's being bottled inside him, because I think that's like what the end of the book implies.
Okay. And so, and in bottling something, you usually become more stressful.
Yeah.
And so this thing might be like losing control even outside of him. And
there's this like horror house behind him, like very apparent, never addresses it for like the first couple of times we see it. But there's this cartoony nightmare house in the backgrounds of his home.
And we see, and he's outside talking to the guy who helps him find work, and that's where we see this haunted house kind of looking.
And again, they keep up the motif of only seeing like mouths, like below the eyes. You never see the whole face of a person.
Yeah, even with him now that he's an adult, we're only seeing pieces. So he goes home, he sees his cat, he's trying to ignore this crazy house that's in the background of this farm. Reminds me of Gideon Falls, by the way, because there was also a house that this main character didn't saw, but nobody else saw.
Heavy blacks, too, in both artists.
Andrew Sorrentino and Gideon Falls. And so he's going to bed in his cabin, locked by himself with this cat. He hears a kid running outside. He goes to his window, sees a kid run directly into this haunted house. Yeah. He's in disbelief for a moment and then goes, I gotta go and save this kid. I've been in this kid's situation. A couple issues ago, he was talking about bullies and how he can't let other people be bullied, and he has the courage when it's not himself. So he begs up the courage, runs out there, runs into this haunted house, and in literal Gideon Falls style, there is a black figure in the background. Definitely something evil, definitely something that means ill will to our main character, and traps our main character, I believe.
Yeah.
And tells him that
this is his darkness.
This is your fault.
Yeah.
Basically.
He holds up like a black inky venom looking ball.
Throws it at him and stuff.
And the issue ends about.
And that's where the book ends. Is now we got to find out in the next issue what's going to happen inside this hell house. And so that's the summary. Pretty quick. The one thing that we have not done at all in the summary is spoken to how Simon Krudansky is absolutely killing the art in this book.
Yeah,
marrying the words with the images like crazy.
And even when so the opening couple pages are talking about dreams, and the art isn't totally related to that. It's instead related to creativity. It's very Da Vinci-esque sketchbook type pages. He's drawing very anatomical, it's him, his main character kid, being cradled by these realistic hands. Not even realistic, muscle drawing hands.
Right, the kid is dreaming.
And then there's all these heads behind them, people working out. It's very sketchbooky, but people working out.
There's no way we can describe this thing properly. I'm pulling this page
it's covered. I swear I was convinced at one point, I was like, this has to be someone else's sketchbook. And then I looked it up, and he's working on the page, like, I'm really proud of this page. I'm like, no, it can't be. Because there's a line from the kid, and we see his comic where he's like, I dream these things, but I can't draw them. So I was thinking for a little bit that it's because of Krasinski talking to himself about how he wishes he could do more. And I don't think that's true. I think he's just a jack of all trades, able to draw all of this stuff
very capable.
perfectly.
And that's one of the notes I made too. He says, I want to draw it all, but I'm afraid I won't ever be good enough to capture it. And I wrote that down because it reminded me of you immediately. I know there's a lot of stuff that you think of and you just don't think you're capable of drawing and stuff. And it takes time to get used to that, but you got to turn yourself down and just put the stuff on paper. I always wanted an imaginary friend. It's not that relative to this book, but as a kid, I thought it'd be cool to have an imaginary friend.
I tried to have one.
I didn't understand the concept. I thought it was ridiculous, even growing up. There's another quote I pulled here. It says, everyone has nightmares. You can't run from them. They're a part of us, and you can't run from yourself. It's a quote that his mother tells him in his dream, which means that it's a quote from him trying to tell him himself, his subconscious, trying to direct him in the best way possible. He ignores this quote. This book begins this way and ends in an opposite way. He doesn't bother to listen to it.
Yeah, this book takes a hard left after his mom dies. And in a way that's sort of understandable because he lost his mom. And we know how little of a support system he has. He has his aunt, he has his mom, maybe he has a friend. Yeah. I don't remember him hanging out with kids at the beginning of the issue.
No, they show him, in the beginning of the book he draws a little cat, and then in school the cat's like in a locker, and the friends are like, don't you see that? And he's like, nah, I don't see that, man. Yeah. And he's got buddies. He
must just not regard them then, because he seems to not.
He's doing that classic blurred out background. Dude.
Yeah.
So you barely see the kids like in the background.
And like when he's talking to his mom, she doesn't even. She must be under the impression he talks to no one at school, or like has no one over.
Right.
He doesn't seem to really care about these people.
I really think, I think page 8, epic, powerful imagery. I'm sure that's the pages that you're talking about.
I think it's the dream page when he's with his mom and shows her the dreamscape. It's this great scratch page of like, he's standing on a mountain of, I would just call it creativity. It's like random things.
I said
and there's a red background.
I said that they were climbing over imagination, which I thought was, in an image, a really powerful metaphorical representation.
The first 8 pages are just, the writing it's not really related to the plot. It's just talking about dreams and the themes of the book.
Yeah, doing the same thing we've done in the past couple issues and stuff. So, did you catch that rip from Sam Raimi's Spider-Man?
No.
So he's trying to practice his powers and stuff.
Yeah, he's like, he says the same thing.
He's trying to practice. In the last issue, he defeated a bully, and now he wants to be able to, like, utilize these powers. Something we skipped over in the summary real quick. Yeah. There's this whole, like, 2-page spread of him, like, doing silly stuff, doing the same thing from the Sam Raimi thing. Very well utilized colors in and out of panels. In the late portion, the like panel borders were made out of like red colors and stuff, which I thought was super interesting. And then I wanted to talk about that only surface in children close to death. So there's this thing where when you die, what is it? The MDMA is supposed to like produce into your brain,
right?
And then make you go like trippy balls nuts. So that's what I'm under the impression is going on in this woman as she's dying. Is she's starting to get those doses of let's make the death easier on my body.
Yeah.
Well, like she's starting to lose it.
I've heard like in the last seconds of your life, you like have a dream that lasts like seemingly a lifetime.
Right. And so this is just them trying to talk about that and how this kid might already have access to whatever that is in your brain. We talk a lot about dreams and nightmares in this issue and how dreams are kind of their own thing in your brain, that your brain shuts off to retire for the night, but it's still just as active as it usually is anyway.
Right.
And so that kind of plays into this too, that this kid has access to that dreamscape even without having to be unconscious and stuff. So I just think that they're talking about like what it means to die, what it means to be unconscious and still have your soul, your energy be active and running around and stuff. Yeah. So his mother, I think, dies but then becomes a part of this imagination world that he has, right? He might even be able to channel his mother later in life. Maybe we'll see that in the next coming couple of issues. Yeah. Last part that I want to mention is that this is a huge commentary on life. Talks about depression, talks about anxiety, dreams, death, reality, imagination. And it's really interwoven into the pages and art of the book. I can't stress enough how married the context in the book is to the actual images and stuff. This is one man doing the whole book, and he's doing an amazing job. From colors to figures to layouts to telling us this whole story. I'm thoroughly impressed.
Yeah, this book is great.
You got anything to leave off on there, Chris?
No.
Weekly Wednesday Warriors, stay tuned to our July issue of Shonen Jump. Thank you for watching. See you next time.
How we going?